Well, I wish I would have paid closer attention to that notice about the opening party with Brad Paisley. I might have come in earlier.
Here you go. Here we go. We are live. Rock and roll.
Ready, set, go. Coming to you live, it's the AutoHub show with Ian and Jeff. Here we go.
Who said you can't teach an old dog new tricks? Hi, I'm Gail Rubenstein, the founder and CEO of a company called Retail Resilient, social selling for the car industry. And we help auto dealers, auto agencies, and vendors in the auto industry sell more cars, service more cars, and make more money using our social selling strategy. That includes TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and anything else you can think of. So if you're looking to invest thousands and make millions, we're definitely the social selling company for you. Like I said, who said you can't teach an old dog new tricks?
I was at Larry Pullman's seminar. So happy I came, having such a good time. Thank you so much, Larry.
One of the best trainers in this area for sure. I don't know about anywhere else, but as far as I know, he's the best. So,
told you
twice. Take advantage.
Thank you for having me here.
I'm at Larry Feldman's seminar, and what I found is that what he's really good at doing with his knowledge and with his training, he's not filling a bucket, he's lighting a fire.
Ways to improve. Every month we want to improve better on what we did the month before, maybe the year before. It's about how fast we can get the cars done with quality work to get it to the front line, because that's where we make our money. And the bottom line is the longer it takes, the more money we spend. We want to get it down as low as possible. Right now, like I said, we're in a great stage. We're at 4.5 days. In recon, we want to know how quickly we can get the cars out of the recon process and to the front line. The average days in recon and then the time to line are the most important things that we look for. I'm Mike Burrell, and Service Director of JM Lexus.
And also a special thank you to our newest sponsor, which is VidCalls. VidCalls, you'll see more details as we roll into next month. We're going to have Joel on to talk a little bit more about VidCalls, really interesting solution, initially from the insurance and healthcare industry. Anyway, some classic books for NADA that I got online. So if you're hankering for your original blue book or the original used car guide, they are available to purchase on various sites. This one's from 1952, which is kind of interesting. And then there's also Wisconsin Valuation Guide, Ceiling Prices Official on that slide. Disclaimer, Mr. Jeff.
Well, good morning, everybody. And of course, we start the show before we get into trouble with our disclaimer and just saying the views and opinions of those expressed on the show of our guests are not necessarily that of the AutoHub show or Ian and Jeff, but sometimes you never know, but officially not necessarily.
Thanks, Jeff. And the show today is the pre-NADA show. If I can get this to work, there we go. Pre-NADA show. And just in case you're going to NADA, Jeff and I will be at booth 6001, which is the Rapid Recon booth. Looking forward to doing broadcasting live from the show. We'll also be doing our signature ambush interviews on the showroom floor. We bring in our camera and wives with us, so we'll be helping with that. And let's get into it. So go ahead, Jeff.
Well, we got a good group of guests here today, Jen. We were going to have Stephen Granger from from Recall Rabbit on, but I think he might have caught rabbit flu, so he couldn't make it this morning. But we have some great people here today. I want to just quickly touch on, first of all, our mission. Our mission here is to help dealers one show at a time by sharing that of our guests and their guests' knowledge and opinions and expertise. Not necessarily that of ours, but we pipe in there. And so our guests today are going to be, everybody's going to be at NADA, which from the sound of all the hype is going to be absolutely nuts. Last year's was just the reboot and it was huge, of course, but this year is going to be even crazier. So I'm going to introduce our guest, but I'm going to ask each of our guests to answer us this question. And so I repeat this. So finish this sentence off. I'm stoked for NADA because of A, the parties, B, seeing old connections, or C, the ability to do business in person at scale, finally, or the swag. Actually, seriously, why are you excited for NADA? And Rennie Sejas from Poly, please say hi, introduce yourself, and answer those silly questions.
Rennie Sejas, I'm the Vice President of Sales at Poly. I guess it would be D, all the above. NADA is it's always a special time of the year for dealers and vendors to come together and share and educate each other. We get to learn from dealers what their needs are, and we get to share with dealers our new and exciting features to our solutions. So I think it's an important event, definitely an event that if you're thinking about going, you need to be there.
Perfect. Well, thank you. And I must say, you're definitely a fixture there, and you know everybody. It's really quite great to watch you there. You're one of those people that walks down through the aisles, and you can't make it very far because everybody stops you. Next, we have with us from not far away from Dallas, from up, I think, in Austin, aren't you, Tim? In Austin,
That's right.
Texas, is Tim Hayden. And Tim, introduce yourself with your company proper name, because I screwed up before, and the answer to all the silly questions. But seriously, why are you excited for NADA?
Well, I'm Tim Hayden. I'm the CEO and founder of Brain Trust. And what we've been doing across a lot of verticals, we're really excited about NADA this year because I think data is just going to be the thing everybody's talking about, from the FTC safeguard rule to new ways to move metal just through digital technology. And of course, that means data. And I'm going to be there with our partners, Treasure Data and Second Sight, which is some pretty snazzy new artificial intelligence that's going to help dealers understand what they have to do to be compliant and grow revenue.
Very cool. I've commented many a time too. It wasn't that long ago that the exhibition hall was filled with really cool, tangible items. And now it's data. Now it's digital. It's you stand anywhere. Last year, we were very lucky to be in the Poly booth with Rennie and his team. And we stood up and looked. And with the exception of the Bandit pickup truck with Burt Reynolds' picture on the side of it, anything I could see from there was all digital. So it's certainly interesting. And next we have with us Alan Crutch. Alan, I apologize because I never get your name right. Joining us from Fuse, please introduce yourself, answer the questions, why you're so exciting, and tell me what swag you have.
Thank you. I'm Alan Crutch. I'm the Director of Marketing and Industry Relations for Fuse Autotech. I think the big thing for me is one of the items you mentioned, connecting in person. There's just so much more that happens in person than it does on a Zoom meeting in terms of making a connection, being able to demonstrate our product, being able to understand what dealers are thinking and what needs they have. So it's the human connection that it feels like we don't have quite as much of anymore with all of the Zoom meetings that we each do. So looking forward to that.
Terrific. Well, I got to tell you something. If it wouldn't been for Zoom, none of us would probably know each other that well.
That's a fact.
Again, in the old days, you go to the convention to see people. And here, my gosh, how many people have we walked up to or have walked up to us and said, Alan, Rennie, Tim, Peter, Larry, Ian and Jeff, just because of this platform. I do want to acknowledge and thank Peter for being here, as well as Larry on the phone ignoring us, but that's okay because Larry always on. And Ian, please go to the next question.
Yeah, I guess in addition to the top 5 from the video earlier, what do you think the biggest draw for NADA for dealers is this year? And what is your #1 goal to do, have, sell, meet, in addition to obviously visiting Dallas if you haven't been there in a while? Let's start with Tim.
Well, I'm in Dallas on a regular basis. I'm just 3 hours south of there. So excited to probably as much entertain folks and be able to have those one-on-one in-person conversations. I think I just think what dealers are going to be having conversations about, right? I think what we just saw in the video, the education on EV charging. I think a lot of folks are interested on that. What does it mean to them? And how can they monetize it? And what does it mean for the industry? What we already talked about with data, what we're talking about with all kinds of new products and new ways to monetize inventory now that inventory is coming back. It's not just that it's NADA. It's not that it's the big show or that it's in Dallas. It's also because it's 2023 and there's just a lot happening from a trend standpoint that I think everyone's going to be there to get answers.
Appreciate that. Alan, what do you think?
Well, I think from a dealer standpoint that the make meetings, the OEM meetings are going to be, they're always interesting, but I think they'll be especially interesting this year as the OEMs continue to articulate their distribution strategy. As we hear all the talk about whether it's direct selling or an agency model or how the dealer fits into the manufacturer's plans for the next 5 to 10 years. So I think that'll be a really interesting conversation. Those meetings are typically very candid. They don't allow the press in those meetings. And there's always a couple of dealers willing to speak their mind and ask the questions that everybody else in the audience would like to hear. I think
Are you saying, Alan, that the Ford meeting will have Secret Service agents at the door?
I don't know. Ford's an interesting one because I hear from Ford dealers different things. I hear some dealers that are behind everything Ford's doing. I hear from other dealers they're a little afraid of some of the things Jim Farley has said. But I think that in addition to the OEM meetings, I think we take this big topic of data, whether it's the safeguards rule, whether it's using a consumer data platform to manage your first party data, that there's a lot swirling around there. And every year, every NADA, there seems to be a bit of a theme as far as the technology goes. And this year, it's really those CDPs. Auto Lead Star has one. There's a bunch of companies out there that are promoting this idea of managing your own data. And so I think you tie that in with the safeguards rule. A lot of people talking about that. Tim mentioned the transition to EVs. We're at the beginning of that, but we're not at the beginning of spending money. Dealers are spending a lot of money on that right now with OEM mandates, putting in chargers, educating their team. So that'll be a big topic as well.
Yeah, we actually had a dealer on the dealer show last week, and he said he has 2 different franchises, and the 2 different OEMs said they had to have different chargers on each lot, even though they're both charging electric cars, which was really interesting. But I also had a conversation with a Chrysler dealer, and he said, well, we had to hire a specific company to ascertain where we could put these chargers, even though they could see the plan of the lot. So it was kind of interesting, just sort of.
Yeah, Ian, can you imagine that if we had to go to a different gas station with a Ford than we do with the Chevy? And that's what we're setting up now with this charger infrastructure and the lack of standards. A lot of them have adapters, but nonetheless, there's a little chaos yet in that system.
I foresee somebody sitting in the middle of the desert one day with one brand of car, and the only charger for 50 miles is won't work.
Yeah.
Ready?
You can even take that a step further, Alan, and say, what if you have 2 different types of EVs at your house in your driveway, and now you have to have 2 separate setups to charge these vehicles?
Right.
Crazy.
So what do you think, Ray, on the question? Do you think EVs will be one of the big, obviously they are going to be, but what else do you think will be there?
Well, I think Alan and Tim, they've hit, dead on with data. I think years past, digital retailing was the big buzzword. And I think it still is important. But I think dealers are more interested in learning new ways to connect to their customers and how to leverage digital solutions to make that customer experience exceptional. And I think they'll do that through, you know, different touch points. One of the things I struggle with is when I hear dealers, and I was one for 25 years, and I'm guilty. So I'm talking about myself here. Is when a customer reaches out to you via email and you tell the salesperson call that customer, or they send you a message on the chat and then you say email him. It's like let's connect with customers the way they want to, connect with you. And that's again, how does the customer want to buy a car? Do they want to buy a car sitting at home? Do they want to come into the showroom? And again, these solutions that we provide customers, the many hundreds of different solutions that are out there, they all help different ways to make that happen. And I think that's what dealers are going to be more in tune to this year than any is what solutions do I need to make that experience exceptional for the consumer?
Yeah, we heard
guys.
last week where they were talking really about it's about the experience, especially as we get back to a competitive price environment, which we're already seeing. And I'm sure the dealers, they were talking about that last week. Go ahead. Someone had a comment there?
Yeah, it was me. I think you guys were reaching out to me earlier. I was setting up an interview for somebody. I apologize. While I'm very interested to see some information on EV and on AI, I have another abbreviation. It's called PEOPLE. I'm anxious to get there and shake some people's hands and look them in the eye, because I think as we move forward with all these incredible changes, it's going to be more important than ever to have the human element. I cannot tell you how excited I am owning a training company to realize how many people are going to be desperate for training, because it's not only that the training hasn't been kept up, I think they've detrained people, right? What do you mean they won't take it right away? What are you, crazy? So I'm just anxious to see all the folks on this nice show. And I've actually I'm going to sound really old here, Alan, forgive me. I put together 2 3x5 cards, and I wrote down about 30 different people who I'm meeting, the booth numbers. I just can't wait to meet everybody. And like I said, and see what kind of connections we can put together, because my fear is always, as we move forward with all the technical stuff, we lose the human stuff. And I say it every damn show. And if you're tired of it, just mute me. Who in the world likes to get 19 phone prompts and then get hung up on? What we're desperate for is human beings and people that smile and people that know how to hold a conversation. One more thing and I'll shut up. I was on a Clubhouse about 6 months ago, and I don't know if this is really funny or scary as hell, probably both. I suggested that the things that we're going to need as we move forward into 2023 is human contact. And a guy jumped in and he said, Larry, I love you, but I got to tell you something. You might be banging your head against the wall. I said, what do you mean? He says, my daughter is very bright, and she has an iPhone. She has never made a call on her phone. All she does is use it to text. And I said, that's a little scary. He says, that's not the scary part. Her grandmother, now I don't know if it was his mother or his wife's mother, sent her a check. I don't know if it's for graduation or birthday, but she tried to deposit it, and I guess it was over 5,000. She couldn't deposit it. So she said, Dad, I can't deposit the check. And he said, no problem, get a deposit slip, go through the drive-through. She said, I can't do that. I'm going to call grandma and get 2 smaller checks. So when that's how people's thought processes are, that they're that disconnected, man, it sounds to me like all the tech stuff in the world is great, but you still got to have somebody behind the curtain like the Wizard of Oz.
Absolutely. Jeff. I guess we should get a thought from Peter since it's his first NADA. So what do you think?
Well, considering that it is my first NADA, I have to put out a big thanks to you and Jeff to convince me on making that expenditure and heading down. I'm really excited to see the people. That's my first goal of the show. My second goal is to see the solutions that I can offer my clients up here in Canada and Northern United States. I know that there is going to be solutions that are just that just are unheard of, and with the technology that's coming out from everything from utilizing Chat GPT and everything else into the business model, it's going to be very exciting. And honestly, I know that you guys are probably saying 4 days is way too much. I'm saying 6 days, 7 days would be way too little for me. So I'm really looking forward to it.
Thanks for that, Jeff.
Thank you. Well, I got to tell you, the number one thing I'm looking forward to is getting into the Fuse F1 car if I even fit. So our simulator. So I'm excited about that one.
Yeah, so, Jeff, we took the tact this year, besides demonstrating our product, that we wanted to have an experience in our booth. We wanted to have something that would be interesting and fun and participatory. So we built this Formula One simulator that, it has actually a Ferrari carbon fiber steering wheel. And I think people are going to really have fun with it. It's another reason that they might want to come and visit our exhibit.
What's your booth number, Alan?
Oh, I was just waiting for you to ask. 6517.
I'm writing that down.
All right.
I think every lot man on earth wants to go to that Formula One thing, since they all think 0 to 60 is a realistic speed limit to get from the front to detail.
Right.
I thought you might need salespeople.
That's good. That's good, Larry.
And who's going to break it to Peter Smith that the new guy has to buy dinner all week? Or did Jeff and Ian fail to mention that?
Well, I think, yeah, if you're in one of these Zoom meetings with 6 or 7 people and you don't know who the dinner sponsor is, Peter, it just might be you. Everybody else is aware.
Yeah, the first clue is when everybody gets up and walks away and leaves you sitting there. So gentlemen, you've all got to, okay, wait a minute. I started with you all. My joke, and I don't mean to offend anybody, but I can say, y'all have corporate presidents at the show as exhibitors and vendors. Is the greatest part of the show to dealers the actual content of the show, the sessions, the make meetings, etc., or the exposure in the exhibition hall to some of the greatest products ever available in the retail car business? And because Alan was just on the screen, Alan, I'm going to ask you that. What do you think?
So I remember when I worked in dealerships and attended the NADA show, and one of the big things for me was connecting with my peers across the country, other people that were running marketing departments. And I started to get, a feel for the direction of the industry. I started to get a sense of, maybe vendors, other people were using successfully that I wasn't aware of. A lot of times this does a really valuable thing, and it confirms what you're doing right. And sometimes that's a great comfort to say, there's 2 things that I'm doing as a dealer that seem to be working, and now I'm getting confirmation. I have the courage to really pour the gas on that particular strategy. So love connecting with peers. Also, I always made it a point to kind of walk the back alleys of the NADA show, looking for that new vendor, looking for that new solution that didn't have the 55 by 50 booth, but had a great idea. And so, of course, I checked in with the folks that I do business with, but I always made it a point to spend a half a day just kind of snooping, going, what's emerging here? What's the little company doing something that nobody else dares do? And that, every once in a while, you found something pretty cool and you got on it ahead of your competitors. And then, of course, party tickets. Always party tickets. We've got to find those.
Alan, it's like a giant dealer 20 group. I mean, you got people from everywhere that have nothing to do for 4 days, like you said, when they're not partying, but sit and talk and brag and discuss and complain. The funniest thing I ever heard at an NADA meeting was the guy from Acura came in. This is back in, I think, 2008. And he came up and a guy came up and said, I'm an Acura dealer and I'm a millionaire. And the guy said, thank you. He says, I don't want to thank you. I used to be a multi-millionaire. If you knew Acura, that would be a funnier joke back then.
Yes, that's very true. Hey, my statement, my response to that is way back, some company, whatever it was, which was the first company in that Cox massive conglomerate, was once a little tiny operation. So it's a good point. Tim, what's your thought on that?
Well, I got lost when Larry started talking. What was your question?
Yeah, well, everybody does. So you've got a corporate presence there.
Right.
And is the greatest value to the dealers of NADA, all the sessions, you know, the make meetings or et cetera, or the exposure in the exhibition hall or around there to some of the greatest products they've ever seen?
I think it's all of the above, and I think we've already mentioned it, right? I mean, this is let me digress real quick, but OpenAI just unleashed Chat GPT on the world a month ago, a little bit more than a month ago, and people are having a machine now write their applications to go to residency to get their medical degree, right? Universities are outlawing it. The bottom line is that I would say the contemporary conversations that'll happen there are everything you just mentioned. But this year, I think the dealers that have a chance to really change how they approach the market, which I'll agree with Larry, is equal parts getting your data right, which is what Alan was talking about with CDPs. That's my world. That's my wheelhouse. Data unification, understanding who your customer is, and allowing data to tell you that. But also what Larry knows is it's the conversion of that insight in building a relationship. I think that right there, it is all the parts of being exposed to technology and being able to see each other and slap each other on the back, as it were. But there's an urgency. There's an urgency this year for folks to walk away and march their offices, talk to their GMs and their sales managers with a list of the top 10 things they should be doing this year.
Perfect. That's a very good point. And last but not least, Rennie, you guys are certainly a big presence there at NADA last year. I think if I'm not correct, you won the biggest, baddest, assest booth there was, and we were there. So what's your feeling on that? Is it the exposure to people, or is it the content?
Well, I think it's a combination of both. I mean, that's why this event draws so many people from different areas of our industry. I think it's people. I think it's the different solutions. To Alan's point, I mean, there's so many different new vendors there, startups with great ideas that just needs a dealer to embrace them. Tim, to your point about data, I mean, our company this past year bought a company. We bought Driven Data because data is the key to right now. It's the key to everything as far as the sales and the customer experience and we've all said this. The guy with the most data wins. So data is key. And I think Larry, again, you brought up a great point. I mean, you have to get back to your roots. You got to train your salespeople. So there's many ways, the dealers can start doing that, using Larry's services, using digital services. But I think it's keeping your mind open to the fact that you might see something you'd never even thought about, but you didn't realize you needed it. And I think that's the key to NADA, is being very open-minded to change. It's the hardest thing to do in any store. I've been involved, with DMS changes and CRM changes and this change and that change. It is the most difficult thing to do. But if you do it right and you embrace it the right way, it can make all the difference in the world to your bottom line.
Yeah, well, thank you. It's a good point. And I think perhaps a lot of dealers, veterans of the show, get there and they're they're overwhelmed. And so can you imagine new people, their first one, it's crazy what to do, where to go. And I hate to say it, it kind of reminds me of the of people going to auto shows, the public, and they grab the bag from the first booth they come in and they walk around and stuff it full of stuff. And you see dealers doing that. And I love watching the different exhibitors making them change bags to their bags. So Ian.
And I will add one thing, Jeff, that you guys are going to be at the Rapid Recon booth. Your neighbors is us. We're Polly is the neighbor to your booth. So you'll have to see me again all 4 days.
Hey, I got to tell you something, man. We love visiting with you. Tara and is a good friend of ours. We had a lot of fun with her in Vegas. And where were we? San Diego. And we're happy to visit with you guys. Love it. Love it. Ian.
Yeah. How will you judge the show was successful for you? I mean, I know that there's a lot of companies out there that are looking to sell stuff for the show. I get it. Some of the dealers are some of the dealers or some of the providers are also just meeting people. How would you judge success in your eyes? Let's start with Tim.
You know, I think as everybody knows, I'm not exclusively in the automotive industry. I'm there to establish relationships. Actually, before that, establish conversations. I'm looking to, have a number between 30 and 50 different dealers and as much the vendors themselves, because it's their data that will also be susceptible to a lot of the compliance and a lot of the other things that we're addressing for dealers. Just to walk out of there and know a whole lot more of what we have to work with in the marketplace and have relationships that we can convert into clients over the next probably 2 quarters. I think it's an incremental thing that we're looking to do, and don't have hard numbers other than what I've told you.
Rene, what do you think? What's success look like for Polly?
Well, as you know, Ian, we set the bar pretty high last year. We had a huge booth. We had you guys in our booth. We had a podcast stage. We had a bar. We had a coffee station. So, we hit NADA last year with a big splash. We had over 460 dealers come through the booth. So, that's our bar now. We want to see 460 plus dealers. And we think with what the new solutions and some of the new features we have to our solution and the integrations that we've built around some of the biggest names in the industry, I think dealers will find that what we have to offer to them this year, in addition to our insurance solution, is going to be a game changer. So I'm excited to share that new information with our dealers and our current dealers and new dealers. But I think it's going to be a great show. I really do.
Fantastic. Alan, what do you think?
So success for us, we have some numbers, some metrics that we're looking for in terms of number of connections, but really it's that engagement and building relationships. The core product that we sell transforms a dealer's showroom and allows them really to sell a car from one screen. It's a point of sale system for a car dealership. And for a dealer to embrace the change, to compress their average 3-hour sale to under an hour, to make those kind of changes requires some level of trust and confidence in us. And that's where I go back to the person to person, to be able to look the dealer, the owner in the eye and have a compelling story for them of why they might want to make a change in their process. Because typically technology doesn't solve much. People and process with technology that powers it can solve a lot. And so we, even though we're a tech company, we focus a lot on people process because that's what makes the solution work. So those are the relationships we're looking for. And the more, the better. But one big one could change our show. So we're a startup company. We're a couple of years old. And so it's probably for us a little more quality over quantity in terms of building those relationships.
Fantastic. Jeff?
I'm going to throw in a question that I didn't share with anybody before because this just popped into my mind. There's going to be, I don't know, 500, 600, 700, 100 exhibitors. There's probably the same number of meetings. How does a dealer figure out what the heck to do? Because, this show could be 20 days long and you wouldn't see anybody. So I'm going to ask Rennie that one. How the heck does a dealer figure out where to go, what to do, and what's worthwhile?
Well, I think they got to do a little bit of homework, figure out what's important, and then really, look at that map and go, all right, let's plan our day. We're going to hit this side of the show, Thursday. We're going to hit, this part of the floor Friday, this part of the floor Saturday. I think when you start just wandering all over the place, you get lost and you get overwhelmed. So I think you got to be a little more strategic about your approach to the floor. And if you concentrate on one area at a time, then you will make sure that you touch all those different vendors in there. There are a lot, but again, I mean, Alan said it earlier, wandering around the back lots and finding everybody, it's hard to do. But if you go about it strategically, you can make a very successful show. As a dealer, I've been there as a dealer, you can make it a successful show. And then, you can always set, meetings and appointments after the show to really deep dive into the companies that you find could be most beneficial for you. But I would say get into the floor and make sure you cover it from one end to the other.
I got to tell you, I couldn't agree with Renee anymore. When I used to go as a dealer, I had my little list of what I was not doing well at the dealership and I wanted to improve upon, and what I was doing well that I wanted to make even better. But again, there's so many things to look at, so many people to shake hands with. So my goal really isn't any different than it was as a vendor than it was as a dealer. I know you Canadian guys like metric, but I'm going to do it in American measure. I want to meet a ton of people. I want to make a ton of friends. I want to get a ton of business, and I want to learn a ton of things. That's the most important thing, because the opportunity to have this many people that are knowledgeable and in one spot is really invaluable. But like Renee said, you've got to come in knowing what you're looking for. If you really have a problem with your service drive, I think you need to get into a couple service drive experts, because they're there. And the beautiful thing about these breakouts, Renee, if you remember, they're 20 minutes. How great is that? Because we're all so freaking busy. You sit in some place for an hour and a half, unless it's a Larry Feldman seminar, and you fall asleep. Ian made me mention the Larry Feldman thing. I would have never done that on my own.
Well, I'll tell you what I used to do. When I was a dealer, about a month before NADA, I would survey my car buying customers and ask them what we could do different, or what could we change to make that experience better for them. I would also ask my employees, my salespeople, my service drive advisors, I'd ask them the same things, my technicians. I'd get all that feedback and go, okay, here's where we need a little bit of help. Like Larry, what you just said, I'd write it down. This is what we need to go concentrate on, and then go find those solutions. You got to have a plan, because if you just walk in, Jeff, you said it, you will be overwhelmed if you just walk in and go, all right, I'm here. What do I do now? So have a plan, be strategic, but make sure you get out and cover the floor so you see everything.
Well, if we're going to practice what we preach, why don't we draw up our dinner menu list for Peter now, since he's the new guy and he has to pay. Who can take shorthand here?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to be honest.
It's Texas, so it's steak and potatoes. Come on.
I'm in, brother. I'm in.
It's Larry, it's steak and French fries, no sauce.
Of course, the Canadian asks for fries.
Renee, they beat me up constantly because I'm a steak and potatoes guy, and I ask for A1.
Larry, listen, Larry, I feel sorry for you, buddy. I really do.
You're not the first person to comment that after they checked out my mental state of mind.
Okay, wait a minute. Alan's just posted something about dinner. Moving right along. Tim, so you're not totally in the car business, but you're partially in the car business, which means you're in the car business. What do you recommend a dealer do to figure out what the heck to do other than stopping at the brain trust?
Well, I think it's what Rennie was saying earlier is, do your homework. Even here in the 2 or 3 days before you hit the ground there, I think you need to ask everybody who's in a customer facing position, what is it you want to learn about? What is it you want to do? And then prioritizing whoever's going to be on the ground as agents for the dealer or the dealer group on the floor to be able to make sense of everything. I really think this is one of those classic situations, and I'll go back to something just to echo what I said about what Alan said earlier. Data and customer data platforms. You're not going to be able to throw a rock in the Kay Bailey Hutchison Convention Center without hitting somebody who says they are a CDP, they have a CDP, they are your angel to help you, and it's the biggest decision you will make as a dealer this year or next year, but it is the biggest decision because it is all the information in your dealership. It is 100% of that data, and it's a really big opportunity. And it all starts again with understanding what is it you want to do, because no two dealers are the same. So, I mean, that's what I think the big opportunity is going to be.
I agree with what everybody has said, and I'd like to add to that. One of the things that I always made a point of doing when I represented a dealership, dealer group, is I would make sure that with my core suppliers, the people that were most important to me that I was already doing business with, that I would find the most number of the highest ranking
tires, just make sure they were good, took it up a ride. If you go like 100, 105, it didn't do it. But as soon as I went to 120, it hit. So the tires were not of much, but I looked for it.
Wonder who that is.
It's what called engineering. Of course, you're closed right now, so I'm catching up with one.
As everybody's looking around, going,
Oh,
what
wait.
the
You wait.
heck?
Okay.
Yeah.
The other thing about the bolts.
It's Peter, I think.
talked to the guy that got it on Friday. Apparently, there's a update in there. It says when you order a shock.
Okay,
There we go.
There we go. What I was going to say is that I found my core suppliers and I would try to find the highest ranking executives at those suppliers and start to build a relationship. I typically didn't go to ask something, but I wanted to see somebody face to face, because my objective as a marketing director was always to get more than my fair share from my vendors. And to do that, my philosophy has always been, I want to be their best customer. If I'm their best customer, I'm going to get their best work. Doesn't mean I don't hold them accountable, but I found when I had those relationships where there was maybe a little friction, I had somebody I could call and say, look, is there a different way to do this? Can we work this out? Am I doing something wrong where I'm not getting everything I think I should get from you? So I tried to establish relationships other than just frontline relationships. And over time, that really paid off. Again, I didn't use it indiscriminately, but when I had to make a call and I could get to a vice president or even higher, problems get solved really quickly for a dealership when you have that relationship.
that's a great point. Rennie and I asked you this question, right? Rennie? Did I
You're on
get you?
mute, Rennie. There you go.
You did, but I can answer it again.
Please answer again. Anytime you want, guys, speak up.
No, it's important that that dealers have open minds. I think that's the biggest thing. Just have an open mind. Don't be afraid of change. Don't be afraid to put a process in place that you may be uncomfortable with. I think as long as you're looking at it with the best interest of your customer and thinking about that customer experience, whether it's protecting that customer's information or giving them, the right kind of coffee in the service drive, you got to be open for that change.
Perfect. And I got to tell you, they should use the coffee you had at the booth last year, because that saved my life. Ian.
Yeah, I mean, when you're looking at, I guess I was there initially at NADA as a new vendor, and then as a established vendor, and then obviously this year I'm going to the show with Jeff. We're going to be doing a bunch of different stuff. I think the one thing that was interesting as a new vendor was they were really putting you out in the peripheral. So I agree with Alan that you need to really look at sort of those vendors because you never know what gold you can find there. So that was really interesting. But the other thing is, don't underestimate the vendors near you. I mean, we last year's show we're at right near Techion. It's going to be very interesting to see what Techion does this year and how Reynolds adapts because last year Reynolds got really upstaged. So I thought that was really interesting. And also, don't underestimate the other guy's booth, the other guy's team. You might take away there. How is it a necessity to be at NADA for dealers and vendors, or is it a nice to have? I guess it'd be a nice thing to. Peter, can you mute yourself? Thanks. So go ahead, Tim.
Well, I think with any industry trade show, especially the big one, whatever your industry may be, I mean, it is a very nice to have. It's a very nice to be there, to hear something through education sessions, through announcements that are made that week. And again, what everybody's been talking about, just to look people in the eyes, shake hands, start conversations, and even do deals. I don't think though it's a must. I think we're at a point where there's going to be a tremendous amount of coverage. You guys in your ambush interviews, for instance, there'll nobody with the quality you guys have, but there will be another 10 folks that are out there doing those kinds of things. I just think if you got to be remote or you chose to not attend, I don't think you're going to miss out on a whole lot. I think you've got lots of opportunity to understand what happened there. But you're probably going to miss the magic of actually being there and being able to actually interact with humans and see things with your own eyes.
I think it's a must. I think it's a must if you. I think it's a must if you're that kind of person. If you're the kind of person that understands the importance of interaction, how are you going to replace that? Because everybody on this damn call have been forced to do something. It was your boss. It was your mother. If you were in the army. I don't want to do this. And then when you did it, you met somebody, you learned something, and you, boy, am I glad I did it. You know, the old thing, you can't play. If you don't play, you can't win.
Fair enough. Alan?
So I agree with both Tim and Larry. And I would say that it's not mandatory. Of course, I could list a number of dealers that never attend the NADA show. They run very successful businesses, but I would caution that right now, our industry is in such a state of flux with data safeguard rules, EVs, different distribution models from the OEM, not to mention the new manufacturers that will start to come to this industry, particularly the Chinese companies. We have VinFast in Vietnam. There's a lot going on. So I think that while you could still run a very successful, profitable business without attending, there are some benefits from having your nose in the wind, from being at that show to get a sense of how fast the future is coming at us right now. Because it's not changing in one dimension, it's changing in distribution, it's changing in vehicle propulsion, it's changing in government and regulation. And those things are coming together to make this business even more complex than it already is. So stay home at your peril, I would say, this year.
The quote is from Mike.
And I'll add to that. I mean, we remember just a few years back, NADA tried to do a virtual NADA, and it was I would say it was a complete bust.
Yep.
Because as humans, we are meant to have human interaction. we are meant to have conversations in person. There's my dad used to say, there's nothing more, better or stronger than a handshake. And I think that's still true today. You make a handshake deal, that's more important than a Zoom call deal, in my opinion.
And as Ben Franklin said, my hero, when you're finished changing, you're finished. Man, with all the stuff that's flying around out there, with the charge point, how can you not want to be involved with this many people that have this many various opinions? The beauty of this is you don't have to learn 1,000 things. 1 or 2 key things can make a difference in your staff, your service, and the overall running of your dealership.
That's right.
I have to say something. One of my favorite things is you know, we talk about the car business full of people who know it all. And when you'll get a dealer, you'll get a group executive or whatever, and they think they know it all. Well, they get there and they discover, oh no, I really don't know a lot. And that's where you pick up a lot of knowledge.
Hey, Renee quoted his father. I'm quoting mine now. My father said, it's what you know after you know it all that really matters.
Yeah.
That's key.
Jeff, parting thoughts?
Well, you know something, it's very exciting. And you know, last year there was a little bit of hesitancy from people. There was still a large number of people, but not the craziness it's going to be this year. I think it's going to be exciting, crazy, great stuff. I actually agree with, I believe it was Alan that said, there's so much that's happening now. Like, holy doodle, there's so many things. There's challenges from every angle. In the old days, it used to be, well, you know, there's an economic downturn. That's going to be a challenge. Interest rates, that's going to be a challenge. Well, here it's how we do it. What is it we do? What do we sell? Or who's selling it? And that's the key. That's my parting thought.
Yeah, I think it's really a convergence of things. So as we've seen over the last, I'd say 3 years on our show, but also in the industry at large, we've seen more and more technology companies, more and more changes from the OEM and the dealer body, interest rates and economic factors. And I actually was watching something this morning that a number of these Chinese manufacturers are buying more and more companies, including a London cab company, which was kind of interesting, just because that was, you know, not a company you'd expect them to buy. So you're seeing, and Manheim just bought another technology company. So you're seeing a lot of convergence of technologies, much like you see convergence of dealers. So I think that's something that smaller dealers or even larger dealers need to be aware of the landscape as it changes. And I think that's what's going to be interesting this time is what new companies are out there, but more importantly, what companies that were by themselves are now conglomerated, and what does that mean for a dealer? So thoughts from anyone else?
Well, I'll just add, you know, I'm excited because if there's a dealer on the floor, they're there to learn. It's not like we're in Vegas where you can bring your spouse and go to shows and concerts, or, you know, in Orlando when you can send the family off to Disney. We're in Dallas. So if they're there to learn. It's like the old adage when we would have rain, when the customer shows on the lot and it's raining, they're there to buy. So it's that's what I'm excited about.
Fantastic. Alan?
Yeah, I would say the same thing. I think that there's going to be an invigorated dealer body at the show this year. We've got the value of new cars and used cars now tapering off after a couple of years of pretty smooth sailing from a profitability standpoint. So I think all their marketing solutions now become into focus, particularly data platforms. And I agree with Renee. I think people that are going to Dallas aren't going on vacation. They may like some good barbecue, but they're there for the show. And I think there'll be a lot of energy at the show just because of the change that's in the market right now.
I want to add to that too. Us being located up here in the Great White North, getting to Dallas isn't really easy unless you're from Calgary or Toronto. I mean, Calgary's got 72 flights daily for the oil people. But if you do business in Canada and you meet a Canadian dealer, they jump through hoops to get down there. What an Eastern dealer too. It's not easy getting there, and they're there to boost up Rennie's point. They're there to do business because you know, you leave the convention center, other than the parties. What's there to do in Dallas? No offense to the Dallas people, but you know, there isn't distraction.
And you will see a higher contingent from the Caribbean and from Europe this year, as you did last year. You will see the same results from the Russian market, which is zero, but you will see definitely some interesting Caribbean, South and Central American dealers, and from Europe. So just keep your eyes out for them, and they're interesting. You can learn a lot, and also from Asia and other areas. Tim, what do you think?
No, all those things. I mean, I don't think we've left a whole lot unsaid on this. But as it was stated before, the energy, right? The kinds of questions that people are going to ask each other about how are you dealing with this? How do you think we're going to approach that? And it may start with things that are macro level, with interest rates and inventory, but it's going to come down to things the OEMs are specifically doing to specific dealers. It's going to come down to things that are happening in the compliance world, state by state. I mean, there's a lot that's in flux. So I just think that, as everybody talked about the energy, it's going to be very electric, and I don't mean any pun with that. I think it's just going to be it's going to be high voltage for sure.
Perfect.
Have yourself a great week. We'll see you all at ANDA. We'll be at booth 6001, and have yourself travel safe. We'll see you there.
Thank you for taking
See
the
you there,
time.
guys.
Thanks.
See you guys. Thank you.
Joining us. It was a great show, and follow us anywhere you would like on your favorite podcast, on Facebook, on LinkedIn, and of course on our YouTube, or subscribe to our own channel.